Hello, hello.
Thank you. Now it's again Isa Bhopal's turn to choose a subject.
Biology.
Biology. Pain breaks the bat. Recent work has shown that bats tend to slam into smooth surfaces like glass walls when flying. Given that these creatures are capable of using echolocation to detect obstacles, why does it fail here? Moreover, given that this can seriously injure and sometimes even kill the bat, why has there not been an evolutionary adaptation to avoid this? You have 30 seconds, your time starts now. Your time is up. Do you have an answer?
Uh, the waves must not be reflecting back through the glass. That is why it cannot actually detect the glass, and that is why it slams in it.
You're saying the waves are not reflected by glass?
Yeah.
That's incorrect.
IIC Bangalore, do you have an answer?
Yes, the waves might not completely reflect back, so it is sort of translucent to like it partly allows the sound waves, but they don't reflect back in the proper direction as it has been evolved for the caves. It does not, in the caves there's a particular way in which it reflects, say, like light, but maybe that is not how it happens for glass.
Sorry, can you repeat?
Maybe in the caves where the bats have evolved, the light will reflect, say the sound will reflect just like light reflects on a smooth surface, but maybe that is not the case for glass. That is, yeah.
That is incorrect.
IIT Delhi, do you have an answer?
Given that it's a smooth surface, it won't have those inaccuracies or those like up down irregular structure which allows.
Could you speak a little louder, please?
Like for a rough surface, the incident like echoes or like the returning echoes will go in all directions. So it will also come back to the bat no matter what direction went in. But for a perfectly smooth surface, it will reflect like by laws of reflection away from the bat and away from the point producing. So that is why like smooth surfaces aren't detecting by echolocation. And the reason why there hasn't been an evolutionary adaptation is, I mean the only adaptations possible in this case is switching to a different mode of detection, because any sound wave or any kind of wave will always like bounce and fall.
I think the reason could be that there does not exist glass walls in nature, at least on the time scale for evolution to be effective, so bats do not have time to evolve to take this into consideration.
Like this and the possible evolutions still, which could have been is like they could have used sight, but they awake in the night, so they have to use echolocation.
I'm not sure what your exact answer for evolutionary adaptation is. Final answer.
So we believe that since glass walls do not exist in nature on evolutionary time scale, they are a very recent invention. Bats simply do not have enough time to evolve to take this into consideration. And perfectly smooth surfaces do not exist in nature, so they did not encounter this problem beforehand.
That is correct.
Your answer is correct. Isa Bhopal, please stand a member to the audience. IISc, it's your turn to choose a subject. Biology. Not putting all your eggs in one basket. A clutch is the number of eggs laid by a bird in a mating cycle. A general observation is that larger eggs allow for a greater nutrition source for the offspring, while smaller eggs allow for higher clutch sizes. An ornithologist observes the sizes of eggs within a clutch can be variable. In what kind of an environment is this more beneficial than maximizing clutch size, that is, all eggs, or maximizing offspring health, all large eggs? You have 30 seconds, your time starts now. Your time is up. Do you have an answer?
So in environments, larger eggs allows like predators and other this things like predators to see the eggs like easily, so they can observe and like kill them or eat them. So in environments where there are like more predators and like it's more exposed, it reduces the size of the egg so that it is not easily visible.
The variable egg size makes it difficult for the predator to recognize it belongs to that species.
That is incorrect.
IIT Delhi, do you have an answer?
In environments where there's a competition like within the same species itself, if you, for example, try to maximize offspring health, your neighbor with a smaller clutch size would out-dominate you in terms of number when there are good times. And if you maximize clutch size, your neighbor with the larger offspring and the larger shells will out-dominate you because his offsprings are healthier. So you need a variability to survive in all situations.
That is incorrect.
IIT Madras, do you have an answer?
We believe that birds who lay eggs in open nest or an open environment may prefer larger eggs because that will help them have a better offspring which can mate further to increase their species. But for birds who lay their eggs in hiding, like in hidden nests, may prefer larger clutch size because that will again increase their chances of species.
That is incorrect.
IIT Bhopal, do you have an answer?
Maybe I think it is because of the weight of the eggs. So the birds which might be flightless, they might lay eggs on the ground because they are heavier. And the birds which build their nest on the top of the treetops or something, they might lay the small size of eggs, so which are light and the weight can be bared by the branches.
That is incorrect.
IIT Bengaluru, you'll have to send a memo to the audience. The question now gets passed to the audience, but anyone in the audience like to answer the question?
Check. Larger egg size would help protect from external dangers. Sorry, my bad. Larger egg sizes are prone to external dangers, while small egg sizes are prone to internal dangers such as lack of nutrition. Therefore, a varied clutch size would, probably be more efficient at combating both together.
QMC, is the answer correct?
That is incorrect.
Is it because resources available in the environment? If you have a lot of resources in the environment, you can have a larger clutch size of smaller eggs and grow them in a resource-rich environment. And if you don't have as much resources, you kind of like stockpile on the resources inside the egg and have a larger egg.
That's incorrect.
QMC, please reveal the answer now.
So there seems to be a misunderstanding. The question is that is not when would you have large eggs and when would you have small eggs. It's when would you have variable egg sizes. So you would have that when the environment is changing or highly unpredictable. So as multiple teams have said, there are different environments in which large egg sizes would be beneficial and different environments in which small egg sizes would be beneficial. So if you have variable egg sizes, this ensures that in an unpredictable environment, at least a few eggs would always be able to survive.
It is now IIT Delhi's turn to pick a subject. ECS. High quality vertically spinning rat. Given is a picture of a rock that was found on a hill in the shown orientation. It was found when water supersaturated with dissolved silica entered a cavity in a boulder and the excess silica was crystallized out on the walls of the cavity. Explain the gradation of crystal size observed in the rock. You have 30 seconds, your time starts now.
we are prepared with the answer. So we believe when water seeps through, crystallization will start at the top of the geode or rock, and at that point the solution will be supersaturated, which is causing the rate of the deposition to be larger, forming larger crystals. As crystallization starts, the solvent becomes less saturated, and as the water moves down, the lower regions, because the solution is less saturated, will form smaller crystals, which causes the gradation in size observed.
QMC, is the answer correct?
Incorrect, but I'd like to hear your answer if I told you that the water filled the entire cavity at the same time. And then what would happen?
The crystallization.
The crystallization would be more profound towards the corners and
Towards the where?
more profound towards the edges of the rock.
I mean, yeah, that's given, I think, on the walls of the cavity. Incorrect. You can pass.
Incorrect. IIT Madras, do you have an answer?
Since the water was super saturated with silica, the water when it enters the boulder will experience a relatively higher temperature and pressure. That's why the water like when the water goes out, the rapid crystallization will form larger crystals first, followed by smaller crystals.
Is the answer correct?
Incorrect.
Aisa Bhopal, do you have an answer?
What I think, there can be a silica present, little bit of silica present already inside the holder. So when the saturated water with silica entered, so inside not all silica entered because it got saturated before the whole amount of silica which was present in the water got in. So the extra silica solidify outside.
I'm not sure what you're trying to say here. Are you saying that there was already some silica inside the cavity?
Yes.
Incorrect.
Okay, so yes, there's supersaturated water inside. It will first crystallize and give bigger crystals, but we are observing that bigger crystals are there on the top and it is decreasing. So the crystals must be floating on the water, and then the water that is left beneath is giving us crystals from like normally saturated water.
How are the floating crystals attaching themselves to the top of the cavity against gravity?
What?
You said that bigger crystals would be floating on top of the water, is what you said, right?
Yes, like there will be material towards the top, so there might be some affinity towards it, but we are assuming we are getting a.
No, incorrect.
IIT Delhi, you'll have to send a memo to the audience. The question gets passed to the audience. Does anyone want to answer? Vishik.
Check. I think since the since the water was supersaturated initially, so the rate of crystallization will be rapid, and so the crystals formed will be smaller near the top, and as the rate of silica dissolved in the water, amount of silica dissolved in the water decreases, the crystallization process slows down, so the crystal size increases as we go downwards.
But is that what you see in the image?
I'm not sure, it's not very visible from here actually.
Okay, so I'll tell you what you see. You see bigger crystals at the top and smaller crystals at the bottom. What you said so far is correct.
The question gets passed to a different audience member.
Check. Can you please repeat what the crystal size is in the image?
Crystal size is bigger at the top, smaller at the bottom.
Yeah, so water gets filled in, then as you said, crystallization is favored highly at the beginning. So crystallization begins, and as the concentration reduces, towards the bottom, the crystal size become larger.
You're saying towards the bottom, the crystal size becomes larger?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is correct, but that's not what you see in the image. You find smaller crystals at the bottom.
Okay, so then at the bottom, the crystals start forming, and then as the concentration reduces, the time for a crystal to form increases, and we get larger crystals at the top.
Incorrect.
QMC, please reveal the answer now.
I apologize for this in advance, but it formed exactly as the two audience members hypothesized, and then it rolled down the hill and came to rest in an inverted position.
It is now Team IIT Madras's turn to select a subject.
Maths.
The troll question. Lad is studying at a prestigious college in Baner. Due to him being a little too smart, he was asked by Professor R. Troll to move to the last bench. Professor Troll says, "Thou shalt return to thine place on the first bench only after you prove your worth by solving this question. Show that if smallest prime factor p of positive integer n exceeds the third root of n, then n by p must be prime or 1. Help Lad return to the first bench." You have 30 seconds. Your time starts now. Your time is up. Do you have an answer?
Yes, so suppose the smallest prime factor is p1 and suppose there are at least three prime factors of n, then p1, p2, p3 is n, and as we know all of them are greater than cube root of n, so we can say this is not possible. This means n has at max 2 prime factors. So
like there will be like two primes which will be exceeding cube root of n, which on multiplication giving n, or if this prime number becomes n only n itself, so n by p gives 1. So either n by p1 will give a prime number, or when p becomes n, it will be 1.
QMC, is the answer correct?
So you're saying there are, like, if there were 3 primes, it would exceed. So that's a contradiction. Yeah, that is correct.
IIT Madras, you get to have your teammate back. The next question is for Aisar Bhopal. Please select a subject.
Physics.
Physics. Ritika's Guide to the Galaxy.
Shrita, Aisar Bhopal can't select physics again.
You have already selected physics before.
ECS.
ECS. Put funda. Vanshika discovers an interesting sedimentary deposit in the ocean floor near the poles, shown below. Vanshika also discovers that these deposits extend further towards the equator during ice ages. How did these deposits, called dropstones, form? The image is of a dropstone. You have 30 seconds to answer. Your time starts now. Your time is up. Do you have an answer?
These deposits formed because multiple asteroids hit the Earth's surface. Since before the ice age, during the ice age also, ice age was caused because of multiple asteroids.
What does that do with them extending towards the equator further during ice ages?
What? Please say again.
How does that explain the fact that these dropstones extend further towards the equator during ice ages?
Movement of tectonic plates.
Incorrect.
Team ISC, do you have an answer?
Yes, so it might be that the central rock is a rock that is very difficult to erode, but there's glaciation happening around it, and so the nearby rock is eroded, and then when the glaciation, when the water melts, the leftover channels around it are visible, and during ice age that's when even like similar phenomena could have happened near the equator or like somewhere in the middle altitude as well.
Incorrect. But I'd like to tell you that glaciations mostly happen on land. They don't happen on the ocean floor. Incorrect.
IIT Delhi, do you have an answer?
Like when the say ocean boundaries are extending or whenever, some rocks which were near the surface of the ocean, they got freezed, in colder climates within ice, and then many years later, when that ice melted, then they got dropped on top of the sedimentation layer. So you had like full formed rocks dropping onto the sedimentation layer on the ocean bed.
And the equator ice age thing?
Like ice ages were colder, right? So back then it was possible at the equator also. Now, so every year it would melt. In fact, it would never freeze largely.
Correct.
You get to have it made back.
So yeah, basically glaciers carry large rocks with them, and then they break off into icebergs near the coast at the poles. And the icebergs, as they melt, they drop these large rocks called dropstones onto the fine silt or mud at the bottom of the ocean. And yeah, during the ice ages, the colder average temperatures allow icebergs to travel further towards the equator before melting.
IISc Bengaluru, it is now your chance to choose a subject again.
Mathematics.
Mathematics. Whose line is it anyway? X naught y naught belonging to R2 is a point in the first quadrant such that X naught y naught belongs to natural numbers. Can you come up with a strategy to find A, B and C belonging to integers such that the equation ax plus by plus c equals 0 has X naught y naught as the only integer solution in the first quadrant? You have 30 seconds, your time starts now. Your time is up. Do you have an answer?
We claim that like ABC 6x plus 8y minus.
It is A is just y naught, B is just x naught, and C is just the LCM of x naught comma y.
GCD of x naught comma y naught.
GCD of x naught comma y naught. No, not the GCD of x naught comma y naught. The LCM of x naught comma y naught. That is going to work.
Can you like explain how you came up with the answer?
It is based on the smallest. Basically, we want x naught comma y naught as the only integer solution, right?
Yeah.
So if we if we have an equation, say x by x naught plus y by y naught plus c dash equal to 0, some strategy like that. If you put x naught y naught, it will be 2 plus c equal to.
So we must have that like A and B must divide C for there to be a solution. Otherwise, because we can express the like. Okay,
Yeah,
so
but
C
how
must
does
divide A
that
and C must
show
divide B.
that that is the only integer solution in the first quadrant? Your line might intersect some other point, and you need to prove that it doesn't.
It might intersect some other point, but the other integer point will be on the line, not on the first quadrant. Our strategy would ensure that the only integer point is in the first quadrant.
QMC, is the answer correct?
It's not convincing, so no, incorrect.
Incorrect. Team IIT Delhi, do you have an answer?
We have a kind of an iterative algorithm. So take any m, construct the line with slope is equal to -1 through it. This will pass the first quadrant only for like some length, not infinitely necessarily, which is obvious from the graph. Now, if in case it is not intersecting any point, then chill. If it is intersecting a point, then we know that every other lattice point compared to that point is at some finite distance. And let us say that the minimum delta m which we need to again make it intersect in the positive direction is some value. Take the average of the like m is equal to -1 and the next discrete value. At that point, it will not intersect any.
Okay, to summarize once, you are saying you take the line with slope -1, and then you change the slope a little bit until it doesn't hit any of the...
No, I claim that by the well-ordered principle and in general by the fact that there's a discrete set of lattice points which are, within any epsilon distance of the line.
Yeah, so that is correct because you have an infinite number of values for the slope, but only a finite number of points. You can always come up with a line that satisfies the following condition. So that is correct.
All right. I see you'll have to send a member to the audience. Team IIT Delhi, it is now your turn to choose a subject. Maths.
Maths.
Magic 8 ball. There is a snooker table of length h and breadth v, both positive integers, with only 4 holes on each corner. A ball is hit from a corner at a 45-degree angle. Give a strategy to find how many times the ball will collide with the rails, the edges of the table, and which of the 4 holes the ball will fall into. You have 30 seconds to answer. Your time starts now. Your time is up. Do you have an answer?
So we have the board. So we have to make a construction. So extend the table, iteratively, like make it an infinite grid of the table. So our reflection is identical to just going through through that table into the next table, and through this we'll eventually hit one of the corners, and that will be the answer. And
like if we have V and H and like based on kiske paas se hum hit kar rahe hain, from the same construction we can extend it infinity times, and then the hole it will go into will be determined by which hole of the like infinite construction is going into. So we have the equation like xv is equal to hy, and we need to like x and y characterize the hole precisely, and we can take the GCD of v and h, and v into the h by GCD of vh, like h by GCD of vh is x, and similarly for y.
So will you repeat how you will find the ball, like hole that the ball will go into?
I mean, if it is, we find xy, and then if, for example, it was odd or even, then based on that parity for each x of y, for each x and y, like with x, if this is whole A and this is whole B, then for x is equal to 1, it will like reach this, right hand side. But if x is equal to 2, then it will reach left hand side, and this will alternate. And similarly for up and down. So from the parity we can characterize it.
Yeah, that is correct.
Congratulations. Team IIT Madras, it is now your turn to choose a subject.
Chemistry.
You have already chosen chemistry before.
No.
This is now?
IITM.
IITM. Okay, sorry. Yes, chemistry. John Soap is calling. John Soap is trying to do some measurements for his soap trademark company. Why does his sodium oleate solution show such erratic jumps in light absorption when Beer's law says that it should be directly proportional to the concentration? Pick his color. You have 30 seconds to answer. Your time starts now. Question? Your time is up. Do you have an answer?
It matches the resonance frequency. So the
What resonance frequency?
The resonance of O minus O.
what frequency are we talking about? Like, is it a movement frequency or frequency of light?
The frequency of light absorb. So the frequency of light matches with this frequency.
Yeah, no, that is incorrect.
The question passes to Team ISER Bhopal. Do you have an answer?
Maybe it is because the soap molecules might form micelles in the solution if there is any kind of impurity, and the micelles may be of varied size, so the absorbance may vary accordingly.
That is correct.
You may have a team member back. Team ISER Bhopal, it is now your turn to choose a subject. Your options are chemistry and mathematics.
Chemistry.
Was it correct or you gave marks to Okay,
What do you choose? Chemistry. We are superconducting boron, we carry the electrons. Why does a common 1950s lab chemical like MgB2 suddenly become so open to the idea of not resisting the movement of electrons at all, become superconducting at 39 Kelvin? And how does its graphite-like honeycomb structure help it get there? You have 30 seconds to answer. Your time starts now. Your time is up. Do you have an answer?
Okay, so in the graphite-like honeycomb has a planar symmetry or a geometry, we can say. So the electrons might have an easier path for the movement from one molecule, from one atom to the other, and the energy difference between the conductance belt and the valence belt might be reduced because of that.
The honeycomb structure is present even at temperatures above 39 Kelvin. Why does 39 Kelvin make it superconducting?
At 39 Kelvin, it is kind of relatively low temperature. So all of the molecules are kind of condensed in that state.
What does condensation do to it?
Condensation makes it closer to each other, which like the belts are closer.
No, that is incorrect.
The question passes to Team IISc. Do you have an answer?
Yes, so it might be that firstly we are considering a singular layer, like a small layer of Mg and B. So the interaction between that might lead to the formation of a conduction band, and then that will allow for conduction across that very particular layer. And concerning why it will become a superconductor, so as I mentioned, at a lower temperature, the electrons can get closer to each other and they can form, there's a theory called Cooper pairs. So a similar phenomena might occur.
Is the answer correct?
That is incorrect.
The question passes to Team IIT Delhi.
At very low temperatures, the layer B exists in the form of like something similar to a lot of benzene rings attached to each other, and that is why kind of like just resonating and all those double bonds oscillating, it is able to transport electrons from one end of the boron ring structure to the other end. And why it's formed at like 39 Ks, for example, because temperature is decreasing, maybe the entropic factors are not as important, so it takes the most thermodynamically.
The structure remains constant throughout temperatures. The geometry is not changing.
But like the electrons are more within the boron layer and more able to be transported in that.
Why are they more within the boron layer?
They form a benzene-like aromatic structure, so the electrons can easily move due to resonance.
Why does it form a benzene-like aromatic structure only at 39 K though?
I mean, like...
What's stopping the orbitals from mixing at like 50 K?
Could you repeat?
What you are telling me is that it's making a benzene-like aromatic structure. Basically, what you are telling me is that it's basically analogous to graphene at this point. basically graphite or graphene. Benzenes, a lot of benzenes in a plane, right? So what I'm asking you is, that's because of the pi orbital overlap that you were telling me. What's stopping this structure from doing that at higher temperatures?
So maybe it could be at higher temperature, like 50 Kelvin, electrons will have more energy. So that is something to do with the different energy bands the electrons could be present in, and at lower temperatures they'll be in this particular conduction band of the benzene analogous rings for the boron conduction layer.
No, that isn't correct.
IIT Madras, do you have an answer?
Like the mobility of electrons will decrease at low temperatures. So I think that would
The conductivity will increase then.
No, that is incorrect.
The question now passes to the audience, and IISER Bhopal, you have to send one member to the audience.
Is it due to reduction of noise? Maybe there are less random movement of electron at high temperature?
No.
Would another audience member like to answer? QMC, please reveal the answer.
Okay, so what is basically happening is, could you move back to the previous picture?
Go
That's
to-
better. That's just better.
Go to the question.
So what's actually happening is, what most people said was correct. What you people said was that this is forming a very resonance, hybrid, very stabilized structure where the electrons can freely move through the thing, right? Now what cooling the structure down does is brings the Mgs closer to the boron layer. So these Mgs end up stabilizing all the pz orbitals that are forming, the layer that is conducting all the electrons. So this layer, the orbital that forms the superconducting thing, becomes of a lower energy and more electrons start occupying it. So the thing entirely becomes superconducting.
I mean, that is one of the things which Pratham mentioned might be possible, but then you also said that the structure is not changing.
Any
you are not
cross-questioning
really allowed
will
to
be
cross-question.
after the rapid fire round ends.
Okay.
So now we'll move on to Team IISc Bengaluru. What subject do you choose? You have physics and chemistry as options.
Physics.
Flashback. The cult of Professor on the ISS were getting bored and wanted to watch a movie. They decide to set up a full motion IMAX reel. There is unfortunately no space in the International Space Station, thus they put it outside in vacuum. The electrically neutral movie tape is stuck together with an adhesive and is unrolled outside the station in shadow. They run a tape that was recorded in 2001. After a while, the film starts to glitch. They discover that the tape has been damaged by X-rays. In the investigation, it is seen that the tape is preferentially charged, unrolled bit is positive and the rolled bit is negative due to the breakage of adhesive chemical bond. Given this charge separation develops during unrolling, how do the X-rays form? Hint, the answer is not cosmic rays. Explain with justification. You have 30 seconds, your time starts now.
Yes. It might be because when the tape is being sort of pulled out, it is said that the tape it was recorded in 2001. So there's a certain static electricity that is being developed on the surface of the tape that is like causing certain dipoles one side to have a different charge and the other side to have a different charge, and that might be the reason behind the formation of X-rays.
Can you explain how the charge separation leads to X-rays?
So like essentially when the charge separation is happening, it is like a certain dipole is being formed and due to the motion of the charges, if it's happening very rapidly, that might cause the X-rays to form.
That is incorrect.
Team IIT Delhi, do you have an answer? We'll have to move on.
IIT Delhi, taking a hint from the year mentioned 2001, we hypothesize this is because of the radioactive particles in the film. So the radioactive decay is causing charge separation between the unrolled and rolled bits, also emission of X-rays.
And how is the charge separation causing X-rays?
The radioactive processes are causing both the charge separation and emission of X-rays.
That
The
is incorrect.
adhesive used in 2001 probably contains it probably contains radioactive particles. So when breaking it, those particles are no longer those particles are now free to, I guess, radiate, and that's why X-ray was released, which broke the which caused damage.
I feel like I should mention 2001 is just a reference to Space Odyssey. Please don't focus on that, teams.
Incorrect. Team IIT Madras, do you have an answer?
I guess because of the unrolling of the tape, the charge densities, like the charges are loosely bound, or maybe something like Compton scattering comes into play and a continuous X-ray is being produced.
That is incorrect.
Team IISA Bhopal, do you have an answer?
Maybe it's because of the material with which the movie tape has been made. So because of that, when it is provided with a vacuum, the charges in the tape might be separated because of that. And when that happens, due to all of the other phenomena in the outer space, the X-rays might be generated.
What other phenomena?
Team IISA Bhopal, should we move on to the audience?
Yes, please.
The question passes to the audience. Would anyone like to answer?
When rolling the tape out, maybe you are like pulling the electrons out. That is causing the charge separation, and that is causing formation of X-rays.
How is that causing X-rays?
Because the electrons are going out of the atom. No? There is so electron got out of atom from one side of the tape, but they also got to the another atom. No? So as they go down the other atom, they release X-rays.
They release X-rays.
They release energy as they bond to the other atoms.
The answer isn't completely correct. So if any other audience member wants to add to it.
So when you unroll the tape, the adhesive basically, the pulling of the adhesive polarizes two sides, one into positive, one into negative. And the negative side releases electrons which go and hit the positive side. And then it causes braking radiation when the electrons hit the prime-Strahling effect, and you get X-rays.
That is correct. I'd like to point out that the vacuum is required so that the electrons can be accelerated that fast without hitting atoms in between. And the title Flashback is a reference to Oppenheimer on Bhang from yesterday because that had prime-Strahling.
Team IISc, you are eliminated for the rest of the grid round. The next question is for Team IIT Delhi. What subject would you like to choose?
Physics.
Yes, physics. Ritika's Guide to the Galaxy. Captain Jignesis log, stardate 426.7.42. The USS Ishan Price is observing a rare binary system consisting of two highly magnetized neutron stars. Our sensors show that the following configuration has been formed between them, trapping a cloud of completely ionized plasma. Refer to figure 1. The magnetic field in the center, which is at its minimum, is B naught, and if you move towards either neutron star, the maximum magnetic field encountered is Bm. What is the condition on the initial velocity for a Rithikium ion to be successfully trapped in the middle? Hint, the magnetic moment mu equals mv perpendicular square of the mv perpendicular square by 2b of the particle remains conserved at all times, where v perpendicular is a component of velocity perpendicular to the magnetic field line. You have 30 seconds to answer. Your time starts now. IIT Delhi, your time is up. Do you have an answer?
Like, assuming the velocity during the motion remains constant because it does not decelerate in a magnetic field, we need that the cos squared theta, which is the distance between like the direction of motion and the horizontal or the direction of b0, cos squared theta should be less than b0 by bm.
QMC, is the answer correct?
Can you please repeat why you argue the velocity should remain constant?
Like magnetic force does not do work, so
Okay.
it can't.
The answer is incorrect.
The question passes to Team IIT Madras. Do you have an answer?
I think we can find the initial velocity by like conserving the energy. Like as the ion is moving, like it is also producing its magnetic field. So by taking the component of this magnetic field and the current magnetic field, we can calculate the energy at the initial and final position. We can like conserve both like both the terms, and by this we can calculate the V naught. That's the initial velocity that's required.
So how do you get a condition on the velocity, like magnitude or angle? What condition are you giving?
Like I would be able to calculate the magnitude of the initial velocity. Perpendicular. No, that's
Can you please repeat the first part of your answer?
like I was calculating the magnitude of the velocity. So I was like as the ion is moving, it would be producing its magnetic field, and and we have a present magnetic field as well. So we will just conserve the energy that was present initially and at the final state when it reaches like the outside condition where it is the maximum where we have the maximum magnitude, that's Bm.
So you are saying that energy is conserved.
We are also taking into account the magnetic field that is produced by the movement of the charge. So like if we are taking that term, so we can conserve the energy. There's no other energy term that would be there.
So you are saying the velocity changes, magnitude?
Yeah.
That is incorrect.
The question passes to Team ISA Bhopal. Do you have an answer?
Yeah, so what I think is when the forces, the electrical forces and the magnetic forces would balance on the ion, it would stay there. But when the difference of the magnetic field lines would be taken into consideration, the velocity for it should be greater than that of the electrostatic force that would be there. So that is when it would move.
How are you getting an electrostatic force here?
By taking the charge of the Q and the magnetic field produced by the Q charge.
That is incorrect.
The question now passes to the audience. Would anyone from the audience like to answer? QMC, please reveal the answer.
So IIT Delhi, your answer was almost perfect. It's just sine square alpha or theta, which should be greater than or equal to B naught by Bm.
All right, Team IIT Delhi, you'll have to send one member to the audience. The next chance to choose the subject is to Team IIT Madras. What subject would you like to choose? ECS and physics.
Your physics and ECS.
ECS.
ECS. Netrastam. Geologist Shrishti, equipped with a sonar, decided to measure the elevation of all land on Earth a long time after all oceans dry up. Don't ask how. Due to her attempt, she obtained the graph shown to the right. Explain why such a bimodal distribution is observed. Why is some of the land on Earth higher than the rest? Note, only elevation of the lithosphere is measured. You have 30 seconds to answer. Your time starts now.
Your time's up. You have to answer.
The more at 0 is because most of the surface is like at the sea level. Most of the land is at sea level, and the mode below is, I think it's because of the crust layer, end of crust layer.
What crust layer?
The crust and mantle.
It's the elevation of land, so it's like physically like land, the top of the crust, the elevation
Yes.
that it is at. And also, why is the most of the surface at 0 meter, 0 kilometers? Can you answer that?
Because Earth is sphere, so
Like the total amount of matter making up the lithosphere is constant, right? So if something goes up, something goes down, that's the intuition. And then the backing up for it is, for example, how does the lithosphere crust go up or down? In transform, like the transform type of interaction of tectonic plates, both remain constant. In convergent, one goes down, therefore the other is pushed up, and similarly for divergent. And now if we take a random variable x, which represents the distance which is moved by the crust in any such interaction, then by the central limit theorem, the probability distribution applied, bar say like that x eventually converges to some sort of a Gaussian-like curve, which is what we see like in both the positive and the negative. The random variable x has that Gaussian.
Incorrect.
The question now passes to the audience. Would anyone like to answer? Oh, Team Isaac Bhopal.
I think that Earth is usually a geoid in shape, so it has a variable topography all over the surface. So when we are averaging it out for the frequency, we have different depths. That is the height for the Himalayas and the height for the Mariana Trench. So that would be kind of equalized, and that all of the other phenomena like the tectonics, the plumes, all of that, the continental drift, whatever that happened, would affect the topography in every manner.
Incorrect.
The question now passes to the audience.
The bottom one is like the ocean floor, the top is like usual continent height.
Yeah, and why are they at those levels?
Because the higher one is like sea level, the bottom.
Anybody else for the second part of the question?
Because the oceanic crust is denser, so
Correct. So because the oceanic crust is denser, it's lower. It's as it was mentioned in the participant brief. The crust sort of floats on the mantle. If the oceanic crust is denser, it will sink down more, and the continental crust, it's less dense. It stays up a little bit, and those are the two dominant types of land on the Earth. So that's why there are two modes.
Team IIT Madras, please send one member to the audience. Team IISA Bhopal, it is time for your last question. You only have mathematics left. Mathematics. Heptagons are the new bestagons. Can a heptagon tile the plane? Why or why not? You have 30 seconds to answer. Your time starts now. Your time is up. Do you have an answer?
I think heptagon cannot tile a plane hexagon is the one which can correctly tile a plane because it is the most stable shape, and the n equal to 7. So that is the number of sides for a hexagon is 6. So that can cover the entire plane, but not for n equal to 7 or greater or lesser.
Incorrect.
The question passes to Team IIT Delhi.
There's a small construction where we assume at any vertex we have some number of hexagons, let's say, n heptagons meeting. So we take the angle of the line joining one of the edges with the center of the heptagon. That angle is 180 minus 360 upon n upon 2. And if n different heptagons are meeting that point, the total angle will be n into all the internal angles. We are assuming for a perfect tiling there is no gap in between. That must be 360. Which means the interior angle, half of the interior angle must be an integral multiplied by some integer, must be 360, and we get n is equal to 2m upon m minus 4, where m is an integer. We can show that there is no solution for n equal to 7, so heptagon is going to tile the plane.
So what is your final answer?
It cannot tile planes.
Okay, incorrect.
Team IIT Madras, do you have an answer?
Suppose we take any point in the plane, and we are assuming this point is not in any heptagon. So there exists a point like this, and now this point is either on the edge of an heptagon or.
It's not given, right? Like the heptagon is a regular heptagon.
No.
It's not given.
It's not
yeah.
given.
So, like as it's not a regular heptagon, so what we can do is we can consider a point. Like my answer is yes, we can tile the plane with all heptagons, and like considering a point, we can make sure that the angles add up to 360 at each point, and as it goes to the edge of the as it goes to the edge of the plane, consider the base of the heptagon at the edge of the plane. We can just fix an
you don't need to worry about the edges for now. Just can it take, assume it to be an infinite plane.
plane. Okay. So yeah, then I think just altering the angles will work in like.
And how exactly is the structure? Can you draw it? I can come and see it. It needs to be a single heptagon that ties the entire thing. So it may not be regular, but it needs to be a single heptagon. How do you claim that one?
You're saying only one type of heptagon.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we need to pass on to the audience.
The question passes to the audience. Would anyone like to answer? Are you answering the question?
Take a hexagon, take a regular hexagon, cut it into half, right? And once you cut it into two equal halves through opposite sides, you can find points such that if you draw a zigzag connecting the midpoints of two opposite sides, you get two heptagons which are identical, and since they form a hexagon together, they tile the plane. Yeah, they form a hexagon together. And a hexagon together. So two
I think you can
heptagons.
display the answer. So
Display the answer.
Yeah.
That. The heptagon was never told to be regular, and they're identical. So it is a single heptagon that tiles the plane.
Yeah, that is correct. You were the one who made the question.
So for the next question, what we'll do, the next question is supposed to go to IISc, and it's the last question, and it will be a chemistry question. We'll let the solving time of 30 seconds run, and then the question will be directed to IIT Delhi. Middle child syndrome. If solubility is supposed to increase with ring size and more hydroxyl groups, why does the mid-sized beta CD 7 units have lower solubility than both smaller alpha CD 6 units and the larger gamma CD 8 units? You have 30 seconds to answer. Your time starts now. Your time is up. Team IIT Delhi, do you have an answer?
So we're assuming कि for beta CD, the size is large enough for intramolecular hydrogen bonding to play a significant effect. For very large molecules, due to the distance factor, we can assume the most stable configuration does not have significant hydrogen bonding, which allows it to bond with the solvent. And for smaller size, we're going to again assume कि due to steric concerns, it cannot have extensive intramolecular hydrogen bonding, and it bonds with the solvent.
That is correct.
You get to have your team member back. And now it is time for your last question, which is biology. Family planning. In the below graphs, the green curve corresponds to the benefit a species gets by producing one additional offspring. The red curve corresponds to the cost of producing one additional offspring. The green curve corresponds to the benefit a species gets by producing one additional offspring. One of species A and B produces offspring only once in its lifetime, while the other reproduces multiple times. Which one is which? You have 30 seconds to answer. Your time starts now. Your time is up. Do you have an answer?
Yeah.
Well, it's like for species number A, the benefit saturates while the cost just rises with more resources allocated to reproduction, and we are assuming more offspring is proportional to resources allocated. So A reproduces only once.
Sorry, can you talk a little louder?
Yeah, A reproduces once and B reproduces multiple times.
Justification?
Like assuming the resources allocated to reproduction is proportional to the number of offspring, A gets maximum benefit as opposed to cost in the first offspring, and then having multiple, like the cost just increases while the benefit saturates. For B, it is opposite. It needs to have multiple children in order for the benefit to exceed the cost, and it just exponentially goes up with more.
That is incorrect.
Team IIT Madras, do you have an answer?
Yeah, so for species B, the benefit is more when resource allocated to reproduction is more. So what it will do is it will just produce one offspring, and species A will not.
You're saying species B will reproduce once, and species A will reproduce multiple times. Justification? I didn't quite get it.
Because the benefit is high when the resources allocated to reproduction is high, so it will it will put all the resources in one.
That is correct.
Since this is the last round, you can. Since this is the last round, you can stay on stage. Team IIT Madras, it is your turn to choose a subject, and you do not have a choice. You have to choose physics. So that is the last physics question. Honey, I curve with the equation. Consider a colloid where very small pieces of Banshee-Cobb crystals are dispersed throughout a liquid, henychium. Every once in a while, an atom on the surface of these crystallites escapes and performs random motion in the colloid until it hits a crystallite and becomes a part of that crystallite. After a long time, what will be the size of distribution of the crystallites? You have 30 seconds to answer. Your time starts now. Your time is up. Do you have an answer?
Like for the particles in the surface, there is a
So the shape will be like hemisphere type shapes of the crystal because the particle escapes and then pushes.
like the particles in the bulk will have crystals formed due to hitting of the colloid to the crystals, but in the surface will have a different shape of particles because some of the particles escape to the atmosphere, but so the shape will be somewhat hemispherical.
Like there is a level and you have hemispheres placed like this.
What hemisphere are you talking about?
This sort of shape, if you can see.
No, this is incorrect.
Himayati Delhi, do you have an answer?
The size of all of them will be the same, and should I give the justification?
Yes.
Yeah. So for the justification, it's like the ratio, like for any given particle, the rate of it increasing in size is the volume of it divided by the total volume of all the particles into the total surface area of all the other particles, assuming that the leaving is proportional to the surface area and then the joining is proportional to the volume because like probability of collision. Yeah, and now this must equal the rate of leaving from any one particle, which is again proportional to its surface area. So given that if all of them have the same, then this equation gets satisfied. Otherwise, it's positive for some and negative for some other particles.
That is incorrect.
The question passes to the audience. Would anyone like to answer? QMC, please reveal the answer.
So IIT Delhi, for your answer, when you say that the probability of new particles getting attached is proportional to volume, that is incorrect. That is also proportional to the area. The answer that we were expecting is that even though larger molecules having more surface area will give off more atoms, the fraction of atoms that comes out is lesser because they have much more volume. The surface area to volume ratio is smaller for larger particles. So larger particles have a probability of growing larger, while smaller particles have a lesser probability of that. So overall, the size distribution will tend towards larger sized particles.
That will be the end of the grid round. Apologies for all the hiccups in the middle. I will now hand the mic over to Parth for the buzzer round.
Hello, okay. Good evening, my name is Parth and I'll be hosting the much more intense buzzer round. Let's not delay, this is a rapid fire after all. We'll
Yes,
start with
all
the
the eliminated participants may come back to the stage.
Acha, acha. Welcome back, guys. Also, there will be no elimination this round, so. Okay, so the buzzer round is a little different from the last grid round. So we have 3 questions from each subject for a total of 15 questions. A question will be displayed on the screen in front of you. So basically, the question will be read out, and then within 30 seconds, you have to press the buzzer in front of you. The first team to press the buzzer will be given the right to answer. Anybody who buzzes before the question is read out will not be considered. And now say you press the buzzer and you're the first team. If you answer the question correctly, then you get plus 3 points. If you answer the question incorrectly, you get -1 points. And the and the audience gets to answer the question. So the question will not be passed between teams. Okay?
Does the score get added and subtracted from your
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So basically, after a question is answered, once it goes through the team that pressed the buzzer first and the audience, the QMC will reveal the answer. As before, any cross questioning is after the rapid fire. All right. I think we can start with the buzzer round. Yeah. Couldn't cook up the title due to LPG shortage. Given it is a heat map that shows the strength of spatial interactions between different positions of a DNA molecule of size n, what can you infer about the shape of the DNA?
Team 2, which is IIT Delhi. This is your turn.
Yeah, what's your answer?
Circular, as in like two strands of DNA forming genetic rings.
Correct.
Great. Okay. Ironic. Two cations are given before you, as shown on the screen. Which cation is more stable and why? Your time starts now. I see.
It should be cation 1 because in the first case there will be resonance and the NS3 can stabilize, but in the second case that NN will be interacting with Fe3 plus, so the leftmost cation will not be stabilized. Hence cation 1 is more stable.
That is incorrect.
Okay, the question is passed to the audience. Yeah. Nobody in the audience? Okay, QMC, you can reveal the answer.
Okay, so in the first cation, the group is like very large on the phenyl rings, right? So they're not in plane for the cation to even be in resonance with both of the rings. What Fe does is chelates to both the left and right amine groups and brings those two phenyl rings into plane. So the positive charge can then flow through the entire system. So that stabilizes the cation.
Okay, next question. अरे पहले ये बताओ कि मैं इस क्वेश्चन का नाम क्या रखूं? Famous paleontologist Tamali finds two related plants, Maitri and Ilesh, in the fossil record, with Maitri occurring before Ilesh. Tamali discovers that Maitri is the first vascular plant in the fossil record, while Ilesh is the first non-vascular plant. Assuming that Tamali has made no mistakes so far, does this necessarily suggest that Ilesh and thus all other non-vascular plants evolved from / after Maitri, a vascular plant? Okay, team for Asar Bhavan.
According to the parsimony model, sometimes it is possible that traits may get disappeared in a few species, and it is not necessary that it might have evolved after only.
What's your justification for it might not have evolved?
Okay, so parsimony model suggests that the easily explainable, right? So the point is that some of the traits might get disappeared in the subsequent.
But why are you then finding vascular plants before non-vascular plants?
Vascular plants were evolved, but then the non-vascular plant, if you see, so there are a few species in which the vascularization has disappeared.
Incorrect.
Would anybody from the audience try to take over? Go ahead, Pranshu. Oh wait, no, Nilesh is going. No.
Maybe by chance you found one before the other because vascular ones are easier to find.
Essentially, yes, vascular plants have elements like xylem tracheids that get preserved much better than any parts of non-vascular plants. So they'll just have more fossils to older times.
Okay, next question. Happy birthday! Consider a cake in the shape of a convex heptagon. Oh, another heptagon. We wish to cut this cake into smaller triangular regions by drawing diagonals between non-adjacent vertices. A valid cutting configuration must satisfy the following conditions. Only diagonals between the vertices of the heptagon may be drawn. No two diagonals may intersect in their interiors. The resulting division of the polygon must consist of exactly 5 triangles. All rotations are considered distinct. How many distinct ways can you cut this cake? Okay, team 1.
It should be just 7 distinct ways, because the only way you can have 5 triangles with no diagonals intersecting is if you draw from that one point, one particular vertex, 5 different diagonals. That's
That
one way.
is incorrect.
Okay, the question.
It is incorrect.
Okay, the question is passed to the audience. Would anybody like to take a try? Yeah, I see a hand raised there.
So as you pointed out, there'll be 7 rotations, and then you'll fix an edge, and then you can have a triangle built around. So there'll be 2 triangles that way, like a triangle fixed with one of the vertices of that edge, and then a triangle on the other vertices of that edge, and then you'll be having some cases where you'll be having edges from that like is fixed edge, and so that'll be 4 of those, and 2 of these, so that'll be 6 into 7, that'll be 42.
I don't know why the people who made the questions keep wanting to answer. Yeah, you can look at what the answer is. It is 42 because you can fix one of the top edges, let's say 2, 7, and then look at all the possible configurations. You get 6 such configurations, and then you can have 7 rotations of each of them. So in total, you'll have 42.
Okay, next question. Something else was turned on. Patel Bhai MBBS has 2 identical cathode ray tube circuits as shown in the figure, with Aishium gas in the vacuum tube. He somehow focuses the light emitted from one tube, makes it incident on the other, and records the conductivity across the latter tube. Explain what he sees: increase, decrease, or no change in the conductivity before and after the light is incident on the second tube. Explain your reasoning. Go. Okay. Were there any buzzers? No buzzers. Okay. Would anybody from the audience like to take a try? Is there anybody? I do not see anybody. Okay. Would the QMC like to reveal the answer?
So for the first tube, the light will be emitted by the relaxation of ions that have been excited because of collisions, thermal collisions by other ions or electrons. But that light, because it is of that transition, can then resonantly get absorbed in the second tube and excite electrons to the same through the same transition. And now the higher energy electrons will be easier to knock out through thermal collisions, and hence the conductivity will increase because there are more free charges that can be made.
Okay, next question. Parth the goat. I like this question. Goats normally have eyes on the sides of their heads. Parth finds that a species of mountain goats on an isolated island have evolved to have forward-facing eyes. Explain a reason for this peculiar adaptation. Team 2 first. Yes.
Our reasoning is on the isolated island, the mountain goats don't have any natural predators, so they don't need to develop eyes on the side of their heads to get a wide-angle view of the surroundings.
So you've told why they don't have eyes on the sides, but why forward? You removed a reason for there being eyes on the sides, but why would that lead to an adaptation with the eyes in the front?
Having eyes facing forward and in general processing lower field of vision means you can process that better. So
Could
you
you
can
speak up?
Like obviously if you are analyzing and looking at a very wider range, and from that if you're evolving into a like narrower field of view, then you can see that particular narrow field of view better. So maybe you can see farther, or you have less cognitive strain.
Forward facing will have a better depth perception.
Yes, that's correct.
That is correct. Okay, next question. You spin me right round, baby. Which of these radicals is less radical, less reactive? Why? So the radicals in front of you. Go.
I think the second one would be less reactive because suppose you have some EEN type setup and you are just reacting it to that EEN. So, and that EEN will have one bond like as one in this direction, one in another direction, that free radical. So when it was attached to that some one end, so it has to rotate so to get into the orientation such that it can like bond with the another radical, because they are opposite in directions. And this is being in the same direction, it has to first connect at one radical and then like flip in like another direction to get it connected to the second carbon radical.
That is incorrect.
So the question is now passed to the audience. Would anybody take a go? Yes, Nilesh.
First one is stabler because you can kind of, there will be like a formation of chain between radicals. There will be exchange energy.
Assume isolated radicals.
Oh, isolated? Then I don't know.
Anybody else? Okay, the KMC can reveal the answer.
So basically you can form a resonance structure where both of the radicals get paired into just a cation, which is why it becomes more stable. In the one that has opposite spins, that is. Because same spin would never have a resonance structure where it could pair those electrons together.
Okay, next question. Earth and climate change. Okay, that's a nice catfish. Paleontologist Soumya discovers two new dinosaurs, L.S. Dochana and Vabhiram, with Dochana being a predator of Vabhiram. He also discovers that Dochana and Vabhiram developed subtypes which had slightly lower hunting and escaping efficiencies, respectively. He also observes that the subtype of Vabhiram goes extinct much quicker than Dochana's subtype. Why?
Assuming that according to this question they coexist, so you have like let's say capital D and small d for the predator and capital V and small v for the hunted Vabiram. Um, like both capital D and small d can hunt small v, and both like I mean small v is going to get hunted way more than capital D, and it in fact because of it capital V is not going to get hunted as much.
Small d will go. Sorry.
Sorry. Are you answering more?
Yeah, we are answering more.
Okay.
Small d will extend much slower because eventually due to competition, capital D is a much stronger predator. So due to starvation, the species will start to slowly die out. Whereas for small v, it is because it's been directly hunted, so it's a much faster time scale.
The second answer is correct. Yeah. So a failure for the prey means it dies. It cannot pass its genes on anymore. A failure for the predator means it goes hungry like one night. So yeah.
Okay, next question. Madden Carlson again. The setup is an 8x8 chessboard where each square is assigned a worth. The worth of a square is defined as the geometric mean of worth of all the squares that a knight placed at the original square can traverse to. If the worth of one of the corner squares, say A1, is 4, find the worth of the square at the other corner, which is H8. Go.
4.
Will you explain why?
Yeah, so say if one of the squares within is maximum, my claim is all of them will be the same because suppose one of them is maximum, then yeah, so the
A knight can travel to all the squares, so all the squares should have equal.
If there is a maximum, then its surroundings will be less than that, and therefore it cannot be the geometric mean.
If there is a maximum, then?
yeah, so say there's a maximum, then all of the surroundings will be less than that, then the geometric mean of that will be obviously less than that. So suppose same होना पड़ेगा ना?
That is correct.
Next question. Right. Ice Baby. Angad, influenced by Rupsa, is convinced that inclined planes are the best classical machines of them all. He decides to turn everything into inclined planes. He even goes as far as to turn the ice cubes in his glass of Somyaras to be wedge-shaped. When he adds the ice to the Somyaras, after about 10 seconds, he notices that the wedge is moving by itself and believes that the holy lords of Hilbert spaces have cursed him. Given that the liquid is at room temperature, 300 Kelvin, explain why the ice block is moving. Note, the ice has not melted enough for the shape to change significantly. The tilt of the ice block above the surface of the water due to buoyancy is insignificant. So yeah, go for it.
Also read the caption, please. Parth.
Huh?
Read the caption.
Oh,
please.
read the caption. Reset the timer, no? Or don't. Go for it. Okay, cross section of the setup. Assume that the Somyaras behaves exactly the same as water and the velocity vector has been indicated. What?
So the ice will, okay, so the ice is less dense than water, so it will move up. That will, so the leftward portion will have a greater amount of ice that will produce a torque, and then that will further push a portion above it, and that process will form a like positive cycle, and that is why.
That is incorrect.
Would anyone from the audience try to take a go? I do not see any hands. Okay. KMC, you can reveal the answer.
I'd just like to say the point that we mentioned to ignore the rise above the surface, that it was just to eliminate the buoyancy. And the answer is that when the melt water forms from the ice, it will sink straight down. But to replace it, that sinking creates a low pressure zone. So there will be an inward pressure from the both left and the right side of the ice. That itself does not make the ice move, but from the right, when the water is coming in or somewhere else, it will flow along the inclined plane. That flowing water, because of Bernoulli's equation, gives a lower pressure so that there is a net force towards the right.
Okay, next question. No, I could not think of another number. Consider two mechanisms that should produce 6-7 proteins per hour. In mechanism A, one mRNA molecule is produced and translated to 67 proteins on average. In mechanism B, 67 mRNA molecules are produced, which are translated to 1 protein each on average. Given the biochemical processes are inherently noisy, which of these mechanisms will show large fluctuations in protein number? Go.
The 67 mRNAs molecules that are produced have more noise because mRNAs are relatively more unstable, so it could
No,
produce
which
more.
mechanism, A or B?
Mechanism B is more
Incorrect.
noisy.
Incorrect, the answer.
Incorrect. Okay, would anybody from the audience try to take a go? Okay, Branch, you take a go.
Okay, so yeah, I think it will be A, because if by noise more than one are produced or zero is produced, that's like 67 proteins are shifting around instead of just a few that would be in B.
Oh yeah, that answer was correct, yeah.
Okay, next question. Was Nickelback right all along? Which is more crowded, the gold standard tri-coordinate silicene or the crowded hexa-coordinate Ni2Si? Both are given below. Go. Okay, time's up. Since there have been no buzzes, would anybody from the audience try to take a go? Okay, yeah, there's a hand.
I just wanted to take a guess, maybe because silicon has vacant d orbitals, the silicene will be more reactive, whereas in case of nickel to silicon, the silicon bonds are, all of them are filled, so nobody can attack it, maybe.
That is partially correct.
Okay, another one.
In the Ni2Si, there are a lot of banana bonds stabilizing the electron density.
No.
Any other hands? Okay, no. Kyums, you can reveal the answer.
Okay, so basically a very simple answer is that per unit cell there's more bonds in Ni2Si, which inherently stabilizes it more. And also, the nickel binding to the silicons brings all the silicons closer together. So the silicon-silicon bond energy, bond length is lower, so the bond strength is higher.
Yep, okay. Next answer, the next question. An ode to joy. Professor Gajiram has discovered 3 planets. The first one, named Shreyas, has no atmosphere at all. The second, Shark Girl, has a shell-like atmosphere which is completely black to UV and visible radiation. It absorbs all of it, but fully transparent to any long-wave radiation, which is NIR, IR, etc. The third one, Mogoberi, has a single similar shell-like gas covering, except it is transparent to short-wave radiation and completely absorbs all long-wave radiation incident on it. Assume planetary albedos to be 0, that is, no radiation is reflected back by the surface or the shell, and all components at radiative equilibrium. Can you help Professor Gajiram in guessing the order of radiative surface temperature for the 3 planets. Note, all 3 planets have the same radius and are at the same distance from the same star. The star emits in the UV spectrum. Go.
The order of the temperature should be one has to be the one with no atmosphere will have the highest temperature. The one that absorbs
Can you
lower.
speak louder, please, and use the names of the planets? Thank you.
Yeah, so the first planet, Shreyas, will be the largest, has the highest temperature. The second one, Shakal, will have the second highest, and the third one will have the lowest, because the first one will absorb all radiation. The second one will only absorb the low wavelength radiation, and the third one will absorb only the high wavelength radiation.
Incorrect. You're talking about the atmosphere, not the surface itself.
Okay,
Incorrect.
would anybody from the audience like to take a try? Nobody. I do not see any hands. Okay, the KMC can reveal the answer.
So Mogu Berry, the third one, would be the hottest. Then Shreyas, the one with no atmosphere, and then Shakal. This is because the sun would heat directly up the surface of the planet without the atmosphere. Now, with the long wave absorbing atmosphere, the heat that is emitted back by the planet, which is going to be in the long wave, is going to be trapped in a sense by the atmosphere. The atmosphere is going to absorb some of it and then emit it back onto the surface. So that's going to increase the surface temperature. And for Shakal, where the atmosphere absorbs the incoming short wave from the sun or the star, it's not going to let much, it's going to basically absorb all of the incoming radiation itself. It's not going to let much transmit to the surface. So that's why Shakal will have the lowest temperature surface. Yeah, that's it.
All right. Next question. Bajo's bizarre adventure. Let P be a prime number. Oishik starts at point 0 of the number line. At each minute, Oishik has 3 possibilities: to stay at his position, to move by 1 to the left or to the right. After P minus 1 minutes, he wants to be at 0 again. Denote by f of P the number of his strategies to do this. For example, f of P equal to 3, he may either stay at 0 for the entire time, or go to the left and then to the right, or go to the right and then to the left. Find f of P modulo P. Go.
So the time's up. Anybody from the audience?
Oh, yeah, no, I think that's past 30. All right, would somebody from the audience try to take a go? Did I see a hand there?
So there are FP modulo P, then there are only 3 conditions. It can be 0 for P to be 3, 1 for P to be 3k plus 1, and minus 1 for 3k minus 1. There are 2 ways to solve this question. One is to use the generating polynomial, and otherwise you can use the recursion formula for doing all this. So that's it.
Yeah, again, like he was the one who made the questions.
Thank you, Bajo.
Essentially, instead of trying to calculate FP directly, you can define a new variable. So let's say A of ik to be the number of ways to be at position I at time k. And then for k equal to 0, all values. So now you can define a recurrence relation to calculate all the way up to whatever the time is. So p minus 1 in this case.
Okay, next question. It's over on Orgin. I have the high chamber. Lord Tansik Van Gobi has the given initial setup. The grey rectangle is a piston of mass m that can move up and down, Gravitational acceleration is as indicated. In the initial setup, the piston is stationary. Tansik 1 Gobi now cools the setup to a uniform temperature T and lets it equilibrate. He finds that the lower chamber has both liquid water and steam. Will the above chamber have liquid water, steam, or both in this scenario? Explain your answer. Go. Okay. Does anybody from the audience want to take a go? I do not see hands. Nobody? Okay. QMC, you can reveal the answer.
So the pressure in the lower chamber has to be balanced by the pressure due to the weight of the piston as well as the pressure in the upper chamber. So the pressure in the upper chamber is lower than in the lower chamber. Hence, at the same temperature, if the lower chamber has coexistence of water and steam, then in the upper chamber, the pressure being lower, you can only find steam. If, say, the situation was reversed and the upper chamber had coexistence, then the lower chamber would have to have water because the pressure would be high.
Okay, next. Okay, this brings us to the end of the rapid fire round of Mimamsa Mains 2026. I hope everyone enjoyed this energetic and exhilarating round. Thank you everyone for attending, and don't forget to join us for the valediction right after the break. Thank you.